Hi everybody and welcome to this live webinar with us today dealing with online versus in-person medical education challenges in 2023. I'm Daniela Clapp, I'm the founder and CEO of Expert Medical Education, and I'm here today with Greg Martin and Christine Marie Lunardelli, experts in digital marketing and influencer in the healthcare industry. So I will let them introduce themselves. Maybe we can start with you, Christine.
It's nice to meet everyone. Thank you, Daniela, for the invitation. My name, as Daniela mentioned, is Christine Marie Lunardelli. I'm a specialty brand marketer. I started my pharma career in Boston, Massachusetts, USA, where I had a progressive career in commercial sales. From there, I decided to come to Europe and do my master's or complete my master's degree in international economics and management at Bocconi, Milan, Italy. And since then, I've held various roles in brand marketing throughout Europe, national and international. And I'm currently the brand manager in Switzerland at Angelini Pharma. It's an Italian multinational. It's great to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you for accepting it. Hi, Greg. Let you present yourself.
Hi, thanks very much. Delighted to be here. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. So my name is Greg Martin. I'm a medical doctor and a consultant in public health medicine in Dublin in Ireland. So my day job is in health protection surveillance, so counting up and making inference about the number of usually infectious diseases in Ireland and keeping an eye on what's happening globally. But I have a deep interest in global health, and because in a previous life I worked at the World Health Organization. And I have a YouTube channel called Global Health with Greg Martin, and I do a lot of global health and public health teaching online, and it includes a lot of teaching on research methods, that sort of thing. And then I have a second YouTube channel, R Programming 101, in which I teach R Programming, which is a platform for doing statistical analysis. So I really enjoy teaching and training, and I've kind of leaned into the online sort of digital aspect of that quite heavily. So I'm looking forward to talking about that today.
Thank you for joining us. So I told you to the public watching this webinar that we have authentic experts in the medical field and in communicating digitally and creating great digital medical education pieces online. So we'll see today really their experience and their tips and tricks in order to provide you with some food for thought in order to build really a good online medical education strategy. So this is our goal today, and we'll do that in less than 30 minutes, I promise, because we are believers in micro-learning and digitally this is important. So we will talk 20 minutes and then the voice is yours, the floor is yours, and you can ask us any question through the box, and somebody is watching you, Isabel from Expert, and will give me the questions at the end. So please answer all your concerns and all your challenges in order to talk with the experts. So I will just take 2 minutes to put the context in place, and I would like for that to just show you some data. But first, the title of this webinar is Online versus In-Person Medical Education. This is not like this. Of course, it's not a competition between online and face-to-face. I'm a believer that it's complementary and both has to exist. But it's true that in this post-pandemic situation, let's say, we have challenges, no? Because it's not easy to go hybrid, to take the best of both worlds. So we will try to give you insight today in order to show you some data and tips and tricks. So I have a very, very short presentation. So I believe it will be just shown in a second. Okay. Sebastian, can you put it online, please? Okay, here it is. So just to put some context, what will be the barriers first to for a healthcare professional to get continuing medical education, because this is the topic for today. So first barrier is, of course, the price. No, it's an expense many times, traveling or paying the fee to attend. And the second most important barrier is travel time. No, for example, when I speak to doctors, they say, I don't want to abandon my practice, so I cannot spend so many days days outside of the practice. No? Then we see, of course, a change, radical change in the last years, no, because of the pandemic, of course. And I will say that in this graph, what is important is before COVID-19, many people did not even attend online CME. No, there were 55% of the population in this survey, for example, that didn't attend at all any online CME. And after the pandemic, 90% attend online CME. So it's very important now. You cannot avoid to have an online strategy. Then we see also very interestingly in this slide that we have some good, let's say, input from some key markets, and in some like the UK, France, or Poland, it even almost doubled, no, the webinar use, of course, after the pandemic. And then we see also that for the healthcare professional, the use and desirability of their online CME sources are with second position online continuing medical education. So of course the live is the winner, but we have of course a second position, the online sources. So it's very important to have that in a strategy for an educator. And then the sources to keep up to date, of course, 72% of physicians like to stay up to date thanks to the online, let's say, CME. So this is the context. We know that CME, online CME, sorry, is here to stay. Now it's part of life now, maybe pre-pandemic, not that much, but now, yes, and it's a tendency that is here to stay. So first of all, I will ask the expert today, what is the value of online CME versus, let's say, in-person, no, CME?
Should I go first?
Go.
You can go first.
Okay. Well, I think some of the advantages of online are obvious. And so I'll just state them, but this is, it goes without saying that you've got control over when it is, except if it's live. If live, you've got to attend when it is. And I know a lot of people like live online content, but a lot of online content gives you that freedom to use and access the content at a time that works for you. And if people have got busy schedules, there's a lot of convenience in that, and they can fit it in. So that's obvious. I think one of the slightly less obvious advantages of online content that we're beginning to see is that content creators, in other words, people that are doing training and providing content online, are getting better at how to create online content that's engaging. And they're getting to understand an online audience and producing content that really fits in with the way that the content is consumed. And I think we'll talk more about that later on in this conversation, so I won't get into it too much at the moment. But I do think that there's a lovely trend in a direction that really is suiting people at their needs and in a way that works for them, which is lovely.
Thank you, Greg.
And
Christine.
And also a little bit of what Greg was saying is, I mean, if you look at the technology that's available today, I mean, it's made online education really easily accessible, and there's a lot of flexible digital formats. You have collaborative and interactive experiences. So it's highly convenient and engaging. I think this is one of the aspects. But I have to say that looking at all education, whether it's online or if it's accredited programs, it's really an integral part of the pharma industry, for example. And I believe that we have an obligation, really to support education, because there's actually a common goal, and that's the patient. So when you're looking at, wanting to improve outcomes for patients, quality of life for patients, if we're better informed and educated, there's better decision making. So this is where I'm.
I will just add that there is something that's lost in online content, and we just got to be conscious of that, especially for people that are wanting to create online teaching. You just need to keep in mind that you're always losing something by not being with a person in person. There's nuances, there's subtleties, there's a kind of interaction that happens in person, which is lovely and beautiful and important for many reasons over and above simply learning facts. I mean, some of our CME is about developing relationships with colleagues and learning how to engage with people in different disciplines. And there is tremendous value in attending conferences and being physically with people in 3 dimensions, which obviously we've missed a lot of during the pandemic. So I think that's important just for us to keep in mind as we create online content. We need to keep that in mind, and not kind of fall into the trap of thinking that anything that's done in person can simply be replaced by some version of an online counterpart. I mean, that's not always the case. And we do want to, and I think there's also something that's emerging, which is this blended idea where you have meetings that are in person, but there's also kind of an online component, and some people are logged in and some people are there. We're not good at that yet. But I think society, especially like post-pandemic, and as we do so much in this kind of blended way, we'll get better at that. So I'm kind of looking forward to, this sort of a new era of blended in-person stroke online teaching, meeting, collaborating, and working together.
And that's very insightful because we are all learning in this space. Everything is new, so that's important to try things also and to study the impact. No, and again, of course, face-to-face and online can be very much complemented, and in fact, face-to-face is still the preferred option. But it's not also possible for all the people. And in fact, I was participating in an event recently from the European, let's say, Society of Cardiology, and speaking about their Congress and what's changed in attendance. And first, they reached a lot more people, but a lot more people going hybrid and opening that door. And second, it's also a way to democratize and universalize medical education, because not everybody can attend these conferences for the barriers we saw, but also we approach the barrier of, let's say, conciliation between work and life balance, personal life balance. So there had, for example, more women attending this Congress live online. So that's very interesting, and when we have to take that into account. And the second question would be, how should the content be presented for an online CME?
Well, shall I just jump in with a couple of thoughts there, because I've given this quite a lot of thought, and it's really I've, through sort of a process of trial and error, mostly identified how not to do this sort of thing. So I look at my statistics, particularly of my YouTube channel, and I can see exactly when people engage and don't engage, and where they log off, and where they, so the extent to which people stay and watch the content that I've created. And YouTube's quite good about giving you all of these background statistics, so you can learn. The one thing that I've learned about online content is that a person's attention span is very short, particularly if they're doing it from home and it's their time. This is different to a lecture theater where they've gotten in their car, they've driven somewhere, they've walked into a theater, and they're sitting in a seat. Under those circumstances, you've probably got their attention for however long the lecture is. Very different when a person's online. You're competing with some cat video on YouTube. YouTube actually is trying to get them to click on things. You know what I mean? You're actually fighting the algorithm. So although YouTube does like them to stay on videos, so like watch time is an important metric that they encourage, but people's attention span is very short. So firstly, you need to try and keep your content in, and I find sort of 7 to 10 minutes is probably quite good. So you need to be able to divide. If you've got quite a lot you want to say, oh, sorry, my screen just went blank for a second there. Quite a lot you want to say, find ways of chopping that into smaller segments. One of the YouTube channels that I first fell in love with was called Minute Physics. And this fella used to do physics lectures in 60 seconds, 1 minute, beginning to end. And I was amazed. And I remember thinking, if this person can teach me more or less how gravity works, or complicated things like relativity, I mean, not the details, of course, but in a way that at the end of the 60 seconds, I thought I'd learned something. If he can boil that down into 60 seconds, then anything that I think I need 45 minutes for, I clearly haven't thought about very carefully. And there's that lovely old adage, sorry, I wrote you a long letter, I didn't have time to write you a short one. And there's something in that. It actually takes time and energy and attention to boil content down into smaller bite-sized chunks. And as educators, I think it's incumbent on us to do that. We need to. And the second thing that I learned, sorry, I'm talking a bit much now. I'll step away for a second in a minute. But online content, when I look at engagement, when it is that people move and when you lose your audience, it's the first 30 seconds that you lose most of the people that you're going to lose. In other words, as you push go, you need to make your value proposition. Like in the first 30 seconds, a person needs to know and understand why it is they should carry on watching. How are you going to add value? What questions are you going to answer? You can't start online content with a long, slow, yada, 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 and build up. It's got to be like, bam, hello, how are you doing? This is what we're going to talk about. And a person needs to understand the value proposition straight from the word go. These are the two lessons that I've learned. Okay, I'll shut up for a bit.
No, great points. I mean, great points. I know the number of materials that are offered to physicians today, it's been like increasing nonstop, and it's making it even more harder to narrow down the choices for physicians. And then if you throw in that 65% of the population is generally more visual respect to audio, because if you look at some of the valued resources out there, the most popular for physicians, it's usually like self-assessment boards, that do a great job of like preparing physicians for their board exams, audio lectures, online videos, and they're all convenient. They're all across multiple devices, but you really have to consider how you're formulating. I think it's one of the reasons why I love the Xpeer app, because it's a micro learning site. Yeah. And even the feedback from some of the customers we've had, how well they enjoy the app. And of course, it's at their own convenience and on the phone, as you mentioned, one of the key absorption of material is our mobile devices.
Yeah. And I think we also need to remember that even when we talk about online, there's more than one thing we're talking about here. I would even put podcasts into online, and, there's online on your mobile, there's online on a computer. And I'd say, just reflecting on what I said a few seconds ago about like the length of something that you're dealing with, there is a difference depending on in the context in which you've got the person's attention. If a person has downloaded and is listening to a podcast, you've often got them for a longer period of time, because people consume that often in their car, they're driving along, they're not in a hurry, they'll, and you've got these like very long format podcasts that are very, very popular and people lean into them. Now, you couldn't do the same thing, that same kind of long content on a YouTube channel and keep people's attention for that long. It just wouldn't be possible. And certainly not on a phone, like on your mobile device, where everybody's used to like their Instagram thing that they just flip through. And I see YouTube now. I've got a thing called Shorts, which is and it has to be 60 seconds. 60 seconds is the limit of a short, and that's the sort of it's designed for mobile phones. So, and then added to that, sorry to go on another tangent, but when we're talking about the way people consume, we need to also consider that there's a whole new generation emerging. So the young people coming out of medical school today have grown up in this age of everything's on your phone. We need to keep that in mind, because when I started, I just think back, I started medical school and we didn't have an email address and didn't have cell phones. And by the time I finished medical school, we all had email addresses and none of us knew what we'd do with them. We sort of thought this is an interesting thing that we've got. But the point is, young people today have grown up with this technology. And so we need to kind of make sure that we cater for a whole different way of thinking and a different way of consuming information and data and education.
Totally. And I think one of the burning questions taking to our sector from the audience is, what is the key to drive the attention and to drive the healthcare professional to the online CME? What is really the key driver to attract the physician's attention? Maybe for you, Greg, you're a physician.
Well, I would say that you need, in order to drive people to your online content, you need to highlight the fact that they can consume this in their own time at their convenience, because that is a tremendously valuable attribute of online content. And you just need to kind of like point that out, I think. The fact that so much of it is mobile now and on your phone, and of course Xpeer, I think is, to me, it's the gold standard in terms of the CME like app that's out there. I think it's fantastic. The fact that you can be sitting in a coffee shop and collecting up your CME points, I think that's tremendous, but people don't always realize it. We need to highlight these facts and let people know, yes, there is now another way for you to consume content and learn and get your CME, and you can do it on your mobile app, and that means you can do it while you're on the train. So I think it's a very exciting new world in terms of education. And most people, if they knew it was an option, would at least try it out. And so I think there is something to be done here, and just in terms of like spread the good news, let people know.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would second what Greg is saying, because I mean, I'm dating myself a little bit. I grew up before started in pharma in the early 90s when internet didn't exist. And in the Boston area, where it's, you have 50 plus universities and colleges and teaching hospitals, if you were doing an educational program for physicians, it had to be of high caliber content, trends, renowned speakers. You also had to throw in the valuables of location, time. So now fast forward, with the online opportunity, I mean, it's still, I would say, the same criteria. You need high quality content, something that's engaging, digital, with the digital technologies, a learning experience, and also, again, collaborative. So I think that the same variables still hold, but again, it's the delivery, of what you're trying to communicate or update.
Yes, totally. And so thank you for that. And I think that another question that also speaking about, again, the perspective of the healthcare professional and you as experts, what continuing medical education, what skills maybe does a HCP needs now and in the future, to be a great healthcare professional?
Well, I think one of the things that healthcare professionals need to be able to do, and this relates both to the way they consume CME, but also in the way they use these new platforms and technologies to train and teach people downstream from them. Because look, everyone on this call is interested in education, understood, and we've all leaned into this quite heavily. But almost all healthcare professionals in some shape or form have an educational responsibility to the people downstream from them. Absolutely. And so all of us, even if you're not a YouTuber, need to start thinking about, how do I engage in this world that's changing so quickly? And it's something people need to learn. They need to learn because there'll be a lot of people, even if you're asked to do a lecture and you're told, well, it's got to be online and can you produce a video? There's quite a lot you can learn about how to do it better. A small thing is I've noticed quite often you'll see a person that's kind of engaged in an online lecture. They're asked to give a talk. They will not appreciate the importance of good sound quality. And you sort of have to tell people sound quality for online presentations is extremely important. You don't need to get a super duper, 4K camera, actually people are fine with kind of just a regular camera, but bad sound quality, people really disengage from and find very difficult. So these are little subtle tips and tricks that I think anybody that's a healthcare provider that's involved with teaching and training people downstream from you or junior to you needs to think about how their responsibilities in that context can be enhanced with all of this online new capabilities and technology.
Yeah, I would agree with Greg. I mean, also an understanding of the technology, the platforms, and also a little bit of coaching, because I mean, this is also very helpful. So, I mean, if you're coaching, I know if you're interviewing for a new role and, using a coach or like presenting, it's really important. So I believe, some of those soft skills, and it's a faster medium, digital's fast. And if you have an understanding of the technology and the platforms and you are prepared, it makes it a little bit easier.
Yes. Yeah. And sorry, Greg?
No, you carry on. I'll jump in.
No, in fact, one of the reasons when I created Expeer, listening to the needs of the physician, they were saying also that they need this new skill set, no, in their practice, because if they're an educator, which they will be at some point, no, in their career, but they need digital skills, technology skills, but also softer skills, no, and some other professional skills that are not taught at the medical school. So this is very important to develop new skill set, and also in all that we see on our community and stakeholders. Yes, it is important. The sound is important. The 30-second rule that Greg said, no, in the first 30 seconds, you connect your webinar, the sound is awful, you disconnect. That's it. That's the rule of the digital world. So which skill sets are, let's say, fundamental now for an educator online?
I would say the first thing that I would encourage people to do, and I've referenced this already, is learn how to condense your content into something short and punchy, and then you can always reference people to the more detailed content that they can consume and read. And I mean, online you cannot get a person to sit and listen to you. You can get people to engage with interactive content and where people are talking, and people will watch this for 45 minutes, but they won't watch one person staring at a camera talking for 45 minutes on their own. Like, very few people will watch that. So if you're creating online content, you've got to learn to kind of like narrate, like get everything to be short and punchy, and then direct them to places where they can get more in-depth content where it's needed. There's really no other way to do it in my view. I think that's an essential skill. In
fact, in the tendency you were talking about, the first 30 seconds, there is also a simple tip. Start with the conclusion. No, that usually you have to listen to the person 30 minutes to get to the point. No, start with the conclusion, attract the attention, tell them what they will take from that course or that online activity from the start in order to keep the engagement. So yes, totally. Christine, a thought on that?
Yeah, and I mean, what Greg is saying, I completely agree. I think that you need to have your objectives and your goals on what you're trying to communicate. I think it's very important. And yes, you can start from the end. I mean, that's a good way. I mean, but if you're trying to convey that story, or, teach or educate, or, I mean, you need to understand, the flow, and it has to be engaging. So, you have to use your tools. I mean, it's not so, I think when you're in person, it's much more easier because you have the environment, you have, fellow colleagues around you. But when you are like one-on-one, when it's you and the computer, I mean, sometimes you have to be a little bit more animated, your communication gestures. So I believe it's a combination, there, but you're right on. I agree.
Thank you. We have some questions from the audience, so let's switch. So do you think AI technology has an impact on medical education in the future or in the present?
Oh, can I jump in on that?
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure everyone's tried ChatGPT now. It's so good. Like, it's anyone that's creating content that hasn't just experimented a little bit with ChatGPT to see. I wrote a script for a YouTube video that I was going to create, and then I just thought, as an experiment, I'll ask ChatGPT if to write the same script, and it was just so much better than anything I could have done. So much better. So this is the future. I mean, you can even now get, there's another website, I can't remember what its name is, but it will even produce it like a talking head that yabbers on in whatever accent you want it to, and it seems unbelievably realistic. You can then go into the background. So people are now going into ChatGPT saying, please produce 700 words on such and such, and then they cut and paste the text, they stick it on this other website, out pops the talking head, download the video, pop it onto YouTube. The whole thing takes 2 minutes, and you've got a video that, and that's, I don't think it's necessarily the best way to do things, but just in terms of sheer quantity and volume, we're going to see a lot of that. And it's a little bit worrying in some ways as well. Like, I think we're going to lose we're going to lose something.
Yes, the human touch.
The human touch. I'm an advocate of AI. I think it's fantastic. And I think it's our future. And I think that the companies who are taking advantage of AI are ahead of the game. And, you see AI everywhere in places you don't even realize that it's there. And I would say, some of the new tools, like even like AI generated newsletters. I've known a couple of people involved in that. There's the AI Institute that, the newest technology there. But clearly, it will definitely have an impact on content. I think we're overwhelmed now with content and abundance of information. But AI is a mechanism that could make it more personalized. And I think that's really a key, because if you're looking at, personas and customer journeys, as a marketer, getting that personalized journey correct is key. And I think AI can support in this. So
totally. We have some other questions and we wrap up because it's already 30 minutes. Question from Kathy. All now, what's the maximum amount of time for a webinar you suggest? 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or 60 minutes?
Well.
Like my instinct is to kind of like aim at 45 minutes if you can. I think people, even if it's not a webinar, if I'm just having a meeting with my colleagues, I've been saying, let's try and keep things shorter. An hour is a long time for people to just be sitting. And we spend so much time in meetings and online meetings. And so I think 45 minutes is probably a nice kind of length of time to aim at in general. But that, I don't have any science behind that. That's just my instinct on the subject.
I think it depends on the content, because if you have something engaging, you can go for an hour. So, and I think that, there's diversity in a webinar. If you have questions, if you, open it up to questions, and there's a lot of collaboration. So it depends. I've had really fantastic webinars that went for an hour that, you wish it were a little bit longer. So, it really depends on the content, the goals.
I think you did right.
Yeah.
It depends totally on the content, and this is what we see. I have a very good one, and maybe it will be the last one before we close up. How do we engage the old generation of HCPs to the online platform? I like this one. How do you tackle it?
That's an interesting question. I look at the demographic profile of the people that watch me on YouTube, and I suppose, like there's a question of, well, what is old? But there are a lot of people who will watch YouTube videos that are, in the sort of 50 plus and early 60s. So I definitely find that it's not impossible to engage with that crowd. But certainly most people that watch me on YouTube are in their sort of early 30s, early 40s, and then it tapers off after that. How do you get... I don't know the answer. If anybody finds out, could you please email me?
Yes, and me. No, I believe that online is, of course, and you were mentioning it earlier, Greg, the new generation, they only are on digital channels. So there is a change, and maybe some other generation, they still need other type of formats. And we will always need both formats, the face-to-face and the online one. But still, yes, that was a nice question. Do you want to add something, Christine, on that?
Well, I'm living in a digital country. So this is a positive. And looking at the trends, like with apps, and we're paying bills, QR codes. So, I'm hoping that some of the older generation is on, some of our resources and digital information. So
anyway, what is being old? No, it's like
exactly.
everybody is working, everybody is online, and any physician, even 60 or more, they are online also too. No, so yes, thank you for that. And my last question, maybe talking about Expeer, is like, why do you, Greg and Christine, use Expeer for as a digital channel? No.
I'll
Well,
jump in.
I mean,
You jump in. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Great. No, because as I just mentioned, I'm living in a digital country. So, and really the apps have been trending. I mean, 71% of the population uses apps. I mean, you talk about cross-device use. Also, I'm an advocate of education, and I really love the micro-learning approach. I think it's fantastic for physicians, for memory, for even if they want to self-assess. I mean, it's really important. And some of the feedback from some of the physicians that we've dealt with also find it's been positive results. So yes, and I love the collaboration with Daniela. So I'm a little biased in this, but thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Greg?
Well, I would say just 2 words will summarize it. It's convenience and quality. And I think like Expia I think they've been an absolute game changer. I don't know of any other platform that's done anything like what Expia has done, just in terms of extremely high quality, easy to consume, punchy, useful, and convenient content. So yeah, it's I think it's in my view the number one. I'm not being paid to say this.
No, we're not paid.
One,
we're not paid.
yeah, no. This is genuinely. I think it's the number one, online CME app.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely amazing.
Thank you for sharing with us your expertise, and I invite everybody to go to your contents on Experian. I know Greg has several courses on Experian, and you will see how things can be done online. He's really good at making engaging videos, so go to his courses on R programming and research methods and all these skills that are very much needed for a physician today. And Christine, thanks to the grant we have with her, we have a full epilepsy channel available on Experian with 6 credits available now in everything that you need to know to stay up to date in epilepsy. Thank you all, and thank you for the audience. And if you have more questions that you do, we will answer it after, and don't hesitate to call us or email us in order to answer your question. Thank you all for an amazing time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.